Good evening, guys. Welcome back to our webinar for MSMENV272, Participate in Environmentally Sustainable Work Practices. You can see here that I have got the activities as well as the delivery up for tonight's webinar. What we're also going to do is go through the assessment workbook, talk about what's expected of you guys in regards to your answers, as well as just going over the information that we discussed. So obviously, we went through this last week, so these are the activities which, again, you usually do to commence the unit. So we did talk about the activity questions and answers a bit more in depth than we did the delivery last week, but we will go through them again just to allow you guys to work on your answers if you haven't finished them, or ask any additional questions, or just get some ideas of what's expected. So usually within the activities, the questions are incredibly broad, therefore the answers don't require to be huge. However, in the delivery, as is the commencement to the unit, we do expect you to make the effort to write a couple of sentences down, or even one sentence, just to prove your understanding. Some of the questions are not necessarily in the activities or delivery. However, the assessment does usually have two-part questions, so it always is important to read the questions properly and understand what they're asking you before you just write down some answers. So it's always good. Usually, sometimes I will highlight the two individual questions and I'll answer the first one and then go to the second one. However, you guys can do it however you want. It works different for everybody. However, that's just what I do. So again, participate in environmentally sustainable work practices. You can also use these at home. Obviously, you're not going to have your own policies and procedures, but you will have your own rules for your families or kids or anything like that. So it is relatable in both aspects of your life. So question one is, what environmental sustainability issues are there in your workplace? We did talk about this last week, however, different issues. So obviously things that aren't working, things that you need to improve on, will be things like excessive water use, excessive usage of electricity and gas, as well as reduce, reuse, recycle, getting rid of your waste, perhaps chucking all your waste in the one bin, things like that. So they could be issues. Just remember that whatever you answer in the first question, I'm pretty sure further down it does ask you to reference back to that question. Okay, so that's a very easy question. Number two, if you were asked to investigate and measure the energy use in your organisation, where would you begin? We said this last week. You would begin by looking at the bills and the water meter, and you can also ask work colleagues, staff, like supervisor and manager. The staff would obviously probably know a bit more about it than the work colleagues. However, you can always discuss it with your work colleagues. So number three, go online to one of the websites listed on page 9 and record below some key information you discovered at the website. So at some of these websites, they talk about, it obviously depends on which one, so I can't give you the answers to each individual website. This is a pretty easy question though, so I've expected that you've written at least 4 things down. However, it does elaborate on how you can save power, how you can reduce heating costs in your own home, how you can be a water-saving champion, how you can recycle like a champion, things like that. So whatever is on the website that you went to, you're more than welcome to write it down. Now, question 4, this is the last question for the activities. During a team meeting, you are asked to suggest ideas to improve environmental sustainability in the workplace. Below list some suggestions. So this hasn't actually asked you to reference to question 1. However, it is talking about suggesting potential ideas to help you improve in your environmentally sustainable problems. So the easiest thing I would do if you didn't necessarily understand this question or didn't really know how to answer this question is to go back to question 1. Whatever you wrote in question 1, write the opposite. So if you wrote excessive water use less water. Make sure taps are tight. Maybe turn your meter off at the end of every day. Make sure people are filling the sink and washing dishes instead of just letting the water run down the drain. Different things like that. List some suggestions. Make sure you're reducing, reusing, and recycling. getting rid of waste properly, things like that. Separating your waste, having all the green waste, general waste, and recycling separate. Okay, so again, this is the delivery. This shows that you've commenced the unit, that you've understood the activities, you've understood the information in the learner's guide, as well as from the previous webinar. I am pretty generous when I talk in relation to what specific answers that we're going through. So you guys should have done this already, so we're going to go through it. I'll give you some examples. Okay, question 1. What resources do you use in the workplace? Consider resources that affect the environment. So this will be paper, water, gas, electricity, tables, chairs, things like that. Obviously, tables and chairs don't really affect the environment. However, paper and whatnot do. It says, list one piece of legislation that you must follow in the workplace that is related on environmental regulations. So again, if we go up here, it's in the book. So you've got the Federal Environment Protection and Biodiversity Conservation Act. So there you go. That's one. If you want to look it up online and find another one, you're obviously more than welcome to. So just read the questions and see what it's asking. So for this one, you literally just have to list one because it's asking you to list one. If you want to be ambitious, write two. Up to you guys completely. Now, question 3, suggest an opportunity to improve resource efficiency in your area of the workplace. So for example, if you are an administration assistant or a manager, how can you reduce the amount of paper that you use? Like I said in the previous webinar, print double-sided, print black and white, reuse paper. So if you have any, so like I was saying, if you have any paper that you haven't done double-sided, you can use that other side for safety posters, anything that the kids want. Some kids need teacher's aids, so the teacher's aid will write down different things. They will write down the answers for the student after discussing the answers with the student, and then the student will simply just copy off that piece of paper. Okay, different things like that. Some kids need to doodle when they're in the classroom because they can't, keep still. That's another thing you can use it for. So that's the end of the delivery. So we've officially commenced the unit. So now we're going to go on to the assessment workbook. Okay, so this is, excuse the spelling error, I didn't write this. This is what basically you finish off the unit with. Okay, so the thing that we start off with first is, okay, so this is for the evidence of delivery. So this is where you will simply write your first and surname in here, and then you will sign it there. Then your workplace assessor will sign, your workplace supervisor will sign, and then you will date it. So supervisor name goes in here, student name goes up there. Now make sure you read these properly. A lot of students write their name in supervisor. You need to go in student. You need to be aware of what you're signing. This says that you haven't plagiarized anything, and they are all a true reflection of what you know, okay, of your knowledge. Okay, so this is the assessment pack. It tells you the elements and the trainer's guide to the assessment. Now, this is the assessment summary. So you need to write your name, the assessor's name, the date of assessment. You don't need to know about this. This is for the trainer. However, you need to sign again saying you have not plagiarized and it's all your own work, and then you need to sign below. So the first thing we're going to start off with is the project. So the instructions: form a team with at least one member of your training group, your trainer, other employees, supervisors, or managers. You will need to identify and document an area that you think is of concern in regards to your workplace's environmental, sustainable work practices, resource use. To complete this project, you'll need to do some research and fill in the template below with the required details. So we're going to go through this, and I expect you guys to do it in your class time. So, team members. So obviously you partner up or you get into a group and you put your team members in there, including your own name. Workplace issue that's been identified. So again, what is the issue of concern? Okay. Measure and record current resource use. So this is where you will locate the bills. This is where you'll record on the meter. Whichever you want to do, you will put the resources, the results that you find in here. How should this information be documented and filed? So does your company put them on a spreadsheet? Do they write it down? Do they send it in a report? What do they do? Okay, what do they do when they file it? Do they put it in a filing cabinet? Do they email it? Do they email it to a specific email address where it keeps all your records? That's completely up to you guys. How does your admin manager do it? Okay, so you can communicate to work that out. Who should information on any identified environmental hazards be communicated to? This is very easy. So when there's a hazard in the workplace, who do you go to? Okay, it's obviously not going to be a work colleague. However, when there is a hazard, you will communicate the hazard to your work colleagues. This will allow them to understand that there is a hazard and they need to stay away from that area until it is cleared or marked as safe. So what are the current workplace procedures that are followed when it comes to environmental compliance? So this is completely up to your workplace. What is in your procedures that you need to follow when it comes to taking care of the environment? For the issue that you have identified, record a plan below that could be implemented to make an improvement. So whatever the problem is in this report, how can we solve it? Again, I did mention this before, but if you've got excessive water use, make sure the taps are properly turned off, make sure the toilets aren't leaking, make sure the water's not running in the toilet. You may need to turn the tap off to the toilet, things like that. You might want to turn the meter off. Now, these are the case studies. So these are all your answers. So case study scenario 1, Vanessa has been asked by her supervisor to investigate why the water bills have been so high. How could Vanessa investigate the water use in her workplace? Now, these case studies will relate to some of the information that you've put in the project. So it is important to relate back to the project and see what you suggested there. How could she record, communicate, and file this information for future reference? You can literally put your workplace procedure in there if beneficial to you. Okay, you've got another case study. So after recently attending a conference on environmental sustainability, Jamie has gone back to work to realise that her organisation has environmental hazards and they are not complying with environmental legislation. As well as this, the workplace's policies and procedures on environmental sustainability are out of date. What should Jamie do? Okay, this is completely up to you. Again, what do you need to do if you update anything? You need to communicate it to your staff. However, that would be your last protocol because you need to go through the policies and procedures. You need to know what's out of date, what legislation you've got, what's currently going on. You need to have meetings with senior management. People need to write these up. So it's the last protocol. So I would list a couple of steps here. Okay, so now it's the questions. So the questions aren't that long. This is a pretty short unit, but it is very effective. I have noticed that after students do this unit, they do tend to really understand why they do the things they do, like turn off the taps, turn off the water meter, understand what their usage is, things like that. So list 3 environmental or resource efficiency issues that an organisation might have. So where is your organisation going wrong? What's costing you the most money? What are you lacking? Things like that. Number 2, what resources do you require to complete your own work roles? So what do you need? Do you need paper? Do you need pens? Do you need tables? Do you need electricity? Do you need a computer? Do you need printouts? What do you need? So you just put a list in here. Number 3, give an example of how you could measure the use of one of the resources listed in your answer for question 2. Question 2, what resource? So now you need to say how you can measure the resource. So how can you measure how much you use? Number 4, how could you use technology to record and file information on resource usage? Again, this can relate to your workplace procedure. It obviously depends on the workplace and if the procedure relates to this question. But some people might put it in an Excel spreadsheet. They might email it. They might have all their emails on their computer that they need to locate, stuff like that. Okay, they might, I know for a fact that when my boss pays the bills and she, monitors all the usage, she will send an email back to herself to say that she's paid it just in case anything happens. Okay, number 5, if you identified an environmental hazard in the workplace or a breach of your organization's environmental procedures, who would you report this to? Again, you as an individual need to understand your roles and responsibilities to the organization, and you would obviously report this to management. Okay. Again, if it's putting other people at risk, you need to inform them so they stay out of the area until it's deemed safe. Okay, number 6, how do you access information on your organization's plans for improving environmental practices and resource efficiency? So this is easy. How do you get the information? You can ask someone. So if you're going to ask someone, who can you ask? Okay, you can look on the internet for tips. You can look on your organization's website, obviously depending on how big you are, because some organizations don't have websites. Another one would be just going into the office and asking the admin to have a read. Okay, as easy as that. Now 7, when it comes to making suggestions to work practices, why is it a benefit to work as a member of a team? Again, working as a team, there's different benefits to this. So, you know, working in a team, everybody has different experience levels, which means all of you will have different information that you can provide, which means you'll have different suggestions, which means you can come up with a great idea. You can come up with multiple suggestions. You'll come up with different types of suggestions. Some people might be really, you know, intelligent in one area, whereas other people might lack a bit of knowledge in that area but might know more about a different area. Okay, so everybody's lacking of some skill and everybody excels in another. So just remember that. This is where it also comes to delegating jobs when you're in a team. Whoever can actually do the job needs to be delegated that specific job. So again, in the project, actually in the whole assessment workbook, I expect the answers to be of a decent size. I don't want just one word. I don't want just 2 words. I want full sentences. And I want you to come up with your own answers. You are working in a group in this one, so I don't want all of the same answers. Obviously, the names are going to be the same because you're working in a group, as well as the usage, but you can change up your questions. Okay, remember you do sign declarations to say that you don't plagiarize and it's your own work. So just remember that. And like I said, all answers need to be reasonably sized. So don't just, you know, don't just write one answer. Have a couple of answers to go back to. Throughout this workbook, a lot of the questions actually help you answer other questions. So when you go into more detail with your answers in the earlier questions, the more it helps you out towards the end of the booklet. So this is the end of the webinar for today. Thank you all for participating, and for those who didn't participate, I hope you find this helpful. If you need any help again, please don't hesitate to contact me. Like I said, this unit is very easy. You can relate it to your home life as well. It is based in work practices. So what I usually tell people is all the answers you put down, make it, you know, as if it's in your work life. Okay? But when you think about it as, you know, what would I be doing if it was in my home? Okay? Things like that. When you tend to make things more personal, you tend to understand. Okay, so that's the end for today. Thank you so much for participating. That's the end of this unit. After this, we will be starting another unit, and I will be taking all these and marking them and getting them ready for submission. So you've all done a really good job, and I wish you all the best. So I'll see you for the next webinar. Thanks, guys.